1. We're taking a look at a 1983 Chevrolet Classic that's currently for sale on Facebook Marketplace. The seller has it listed at a price of $5,500. Now, based on the description provided by the seller, it seems that this classic Chevy is in decent shape. The seller mentions that everything works on the car, which is always a good sign, especially for a vehicle that's nearly 40 years old. The exterior color is a classic red, and while the interior color isn't specified, we can assume it's likely a neutral tone that was common in cars from that era. One thing to note is that the seller's description is quite brief. They don't go into a lot of detail about the car's history, any recent maintenance or repairs, or the overall condition of the vehicle. This could be a red flag for some buyers who are looking for more transparency and information before making a purchase. However, the seller does mention that they are open to trades, which could be an attractive option for someone who has another vehicle they're looking to get rid of. Overall, while the 1983 Chevrolet Classic may be a tempting purchase for someone in the market for a vintage car, it's important to approach this deal with a bit of caution. The lack of detailed information in the seller's description means that potential buyers will want to ask plenty of questions and possibly even get a professional inspection before committing to the purchase. 2. We're checking out a 1976 Chevrolet Suburban that's up for grabs on Facebook Marketplace. The seller has it listed at $12,000, which seems like a fair price for a classic SUV like this. According to the seller's description, this Suburban has only been driven 78,000 miles, which is relatively low for a vehicle of its age. It's got an automatic transmission, a gold exterior, and a tan interior, giving it that classic 70s look. The seller mentions that the vehicle has had 3 or more owners, but it's currently paid off, which is a plus. They also note that the Suburban is all original and rust-free, which is impressive for a vehicle that's over 45 years old. However, the seller does admit that the master cylinder has started to leak, although the brakes still work. They also mention that the AC works, and they've recently replaced the electric fan on the AC and heater hoses. The volt gauge has also been replaced, but the fuel gauge isn't working. The seller states that the interior is in great shape, with the seats and body having only a couple of small dents in the doors. They also mention that the Suburban was sitting for 16 years before they got it, but it sounds like they've been using it as a daily driver until recently. Unfortunately, the seller has had to get their spine fused and may not be able to drive for a while, if ever, which is why they're looking to sell the Suburban. They're asking $12,000, but don't seem to be in a rush to sell, which could be a good opportunity for a buyer to negotiate. Overall, this 1976 Chevrolet Suburban seems like a solid classic SUV with a lot of potential. While it does have a few minor issues, like the leaky master cylinder and non-working fuel gauge, it seems to be in good condition overall. The low mileage and rust-free body are definitely selling points, and the included tow-behind kit is a nice bonus. 3. We're taking a closer look at a 1985 Chevrolet 3500 that's currently for sale on Facebook Marketplace. The seller has it listed at a price of $6,500. First off, it's worth noting that while the title of this post says it's a 1985 model, the seller's description states that it's actually a 1986 Chevy 3500 dually. This discrepancy is something to keep in mind and clarify with the seller if you're interested in the truck. Moving on to the details. This Chevy 3500 has a reported 25,290 miles on the odometer, which is relatively low for a truck of this age. It's equipped with an automatic transmission, has a gray exterior, and a brown interior. The seller also mentions that it runs on gasoline. The seller's description is quite brief, but they do mention a few key specs. The truck has a 454 engine and a 400 transmission, which they say runs strong. It's also a 4-door model, which is great for those who need extra seating or storage space. While the low mileage and strong running engine are definitely positives, the lack of detailed information in the seller's description does raise some questions. They don't mention anything about the truck's overall condition, any recent maintenance or repairs, or any potential issues that buyers should be aware of. The price of $6,500 or best offer seems reasonable for a truck of this age and specs. But without more information, it's hard to say for sure if it's a good deal. As always, I recommend that any interested buyers reach out to the seller with any questions or concerns they may have. It's also a good idea to request additional photos, or even schedule an in-person viewing and test drive before making a decision. While the 1985 or 1986 Chevrolet 3500 dually may be a solid truck with a lot of potential, it's important to approach this deal with a bit of caution and do your due diligence before making a purchase. As with any used vehicle, there may be hidden issues or maintenance needs that aren't immediately apparent from the listing. 4. We're taking a look at a 1982 Chevrolet El Camino that's currently for sale on Facebook Marketplace. The seller has it listed at a price of $5,000. According to the seller's description, this El Camino has been driven for 108,523 miles, which is not unusual for a vehicle of this age. It comes with an automatic transmission, a blue exterior, and a matching blue interior. The seller also mentions that it runs on gasoline. One positive aspect of this listing is that the seller states the vehicle has a clean title and no significant damage or problems. This is always reassuring to hear when considering a used vehicle purchase. The seller's description is brief, but does highlight a few key points. They mention that the El Camino runs and drives and starts right up, which suggests that it's in good working order. They also note that it has a V8 engine, which is a desirable feature for many classic car enthusiasts. The seller also mentions that the El Camino has IROC rims, which are a popular aftermarket wheel option. They also state that the vehicle has lots of upgrades, although they don't go into specifics about what those upgrades entail. While the seller's description paints a generally positive picture of the El Camino, it's important to keep in mind that it is a 40-year-old vehicle and may have some wear and tear that's not immediately apparent. The lack of detailed information about the upgrades and overall condition of the vehicle means that potential buyers will want to ask plenty of questions and possibly even get a professional inspection before committing to a purchase. The price of $5,000 seems reasonable for a classic El Camino in good working condition, but as with any used vehicle purchase, it's important to do your due diligence and gather as much information as possible before making a decision. 5. We're checking out a 1980 Ford F-150 that's up for grabs on Facebook Marketplace. The seller has it listed at $8,900, which seems like a fair price for a classic truck in good condition. According to the seller's description, this F-150 has been driven for 175,000 miles, which is not unusual for a truck of this age. It comes with an automatic transmission, a white exterior, and a black interior. The seller also mentions that it runs on gasoline and is fully paid off, which is always a plus. The seller provides a detailed description of the truck's features and recent maintenance. They mention that it has a 4.9L inline 6-cylinder engine, which has been recently tuned up with a new carburetor, spark plugs, and battery. They also note that there are no oil leaks, which is a good sign for a vehicle of this age. In terms of upgrades, the seller mentions that the truck has a fresh Raptor bedliner and a new custom interior, which adds to its overall appeal. They also state that the truck runs and drives excellently, which is always reassuring to hear. The seller seems to be quite transparent about the truck's condition and recent maintenance, which is a good sign for potential buyers. They also mention that they have a clean Nevada title, which is important for anyone looking to register the vehicle in their name. One thing to note is that the seller is firm on their asking price of $8,900 and is only looking for serious buyers. They also provide the cross streets of where the truck is located, which is helpful for anyone interested in seeing it in person. Overall, this 1980 Ford F-150 seems to be a solid classic truck with a lot of potential. The seller's detailed description and recent maintenance records suggest that it's been well cared for and is in good working order. While the asking price may be a bit high for some buyers, it's not unreasonable for a truck of this age and condition. As always, I recommend that any interested buyers reach out to the seller with any questions or concerns they may have. It's also a good idea to schedule an in-person viewing and test drive before making a final decision. 6. We're taking a closer look at a 1985 Dodge D150 that's currently for sale on Facebook Marketplace. The seller has it listed at a price of $4,000. First off, it's important to note that this truck has been driven for 185,000 miles, which is quite a bit for a vehicle of this age. It comes with a manual transmission, a blue exterior, and a matching blue interior. The seller also mentions that it runs on gasoline. According to the seller's description, they've owned the truck for 4 years, but it's been in non-operational status. This means that it hasn't been driven or registered for some time, which could be a red flag for potential buyers. The seller also mentions that the truck needs new tires and a tune-up to be road legal. This suggests that it may have some deferred maintenance issues that will need to be addressed before it can be driven regularly. Another important thing to note is that the seller states the truck will need to be smogged. Depending on where you live, this could be a significant expense and may require additional repairs or modifications to pass emissions testing. While the price of $4,000 may seem attractive for a classic truck like this, it's important to keep in mind that it may require a significant investment of time and money to get it back on the road. The seller's description is fairly brief and doesn't provide a lot of details about the truck's overall condition or any recent maintenance or repairs. This means that potential buyers will want to ask plenty of questions and possibly even get a professional inspection before committing to a purchase. It's also worth noting that the truck has had 3 or more owners, which could be a concern for some buyers. While this isn't necessarily a deal breaker, it does suggest that the truck may have had a varied history and could have some hidden issues or wear and tear. As always, I strive to provide an honest and sincere assessment of every vehicle I feature. While the 1985 Dodge D150 may be a tempting project truck for some buyers, it's important to approach this deal with caution and do your due diligence before making a purchase. 7. We're taking a look at a 1975 GMC SB that's currently for sale on Facebook Marketplace. The seller has it listed at a price of $6,000. Now, it's important to note right off the bat that this truck is being sold as a project vehicle. The seller mentions that it's a good shop truck, which suggests that it may not be in perfect condition and may require some work. According to the seller's description, the truck has an automatic transmission, a silver exterior, and an unspecified interior color. They also mention that it has a 350 engine and a 400 transmission, which are common and reliable components for a truck of this era. The seller lists a few pros and cons for the truck. On the positive side, they mention that it's a running project with a rebuilt Edelbrock carburetor, and that it's currently registered. This suggests that the truck is drivable and has had some recent maintenance work done. However, there are also some significant drawbacks to consider. The seller mentions that the truck has a salvage title, which means that it has been damaged or deemed a total loss by an insurance company at some point in its history. This can make it difficult to insure or register the vehicle, and may also indicate that it has some structural or mechanical issues. The seller also notes that the truck has rust in common areas, which is a common problem for older vehicles like this. Depending on the extent of the rust, it could be a costly and time-consuming issue to address. While the price of $6,000 may seem reasonable for a running project truck, it's important to keep in mind that it may require a significant investment of time and money to get it into good condition. The salvage title and rust issues are definitely red flags that potential buyers should take seriously. As always, I recommend that any interested buyers reach out to the seller with any questions or concerns they may have, and schedule an in-person viewing and test drive if possible. It's also a good idea to get a professional inspection to assess the extent of any damage or issues before making a purchase. 8. We're checking out a 1973 Ford F-150 that's up for grabs on Facebook Marketplace. The seller has it listed at a price of $7,000 or best offer. First off, it's important to note that this truck is being sold as a project vehicle. The seller mentions that it needs bodywork, which suggests that it may have some cosmetic issues or damage that will need to be addressed. According to the seller's description, the truck has an automatic transmission, a gray exterior, and a black interior. They also mention that it has a 360 engine, which is a common and reliable engine option for Ford trucks of this era. The seller states that the truck runs and drives, which is a good sign. However, they also note that it has a clean title, but is currently on non-operational status. This means that it hasn't been registered or driven on public roads for some time, which could be a red flag for potential buyers. One of the major issues with this truck is that the seller mentions it has rust on the floors. Rust can be a significant problem for older vehicles like this, and depending on the extent of the damage, it could be costly and time-consuming to repair. The seller does mention that they have an extra cab that goes with the deal, which could be useful for repairs or parts. While the price of $7,000 or best offer may seem reasonable for a classic truck like this, it's important to keep in mind that it will likely require a significant investment of time and money to get it into good condition. The rust issues and need for bodywork are definitely things that potential buyers should take seriously. As always, I recommend that any interested buyers reach out to the seller with any questions or concerns they may have, and schedule an in-person viewing and test drive if possible. It's also a good idea to get a professional inspection to assess the extent of any damage or issues before making a purchase. 9. We're taking a closer look at a 1973 Ford F-250 that's currently for sale on Facebook Marketplace. The seller has it listed at a price of $5,000. According to the seller's description, this truck has been driven for 70,000 miles, which is relatively low for a vehicle of this age. It comes with an automatic transmission, a brown exterior, and a matching brown interior. The seller also mentions that it runs on gasoline and has had 3 or more owners in the past. One of the standout features of this truck is that the seller states it has no significant damage or problems and comes with a clean title. This is always reassuring to hear when considering a used vehicle purchase, especially for a truck that's nearly 50 years old. The seller describes this F-250 as a farm truck and jokes that it's anti-theft proof due to its unique operating quirks. They mention that the frame, cab, and truck bed are all solid, which is a good sign for a vehicle of this age. Under the hood, the truck has a 360 cubic inch engine and a 4-speed manual transmission with a manual choke. The seller has recently done quite a bit of work on the truck, including replacing the flywheel, clutch, rear drums, front brakes, belts, carburetors, fuel pickups, manual fuel tank selector valve, valve covers, plugs, wires, distributor, and idler pulley. This suggests that the truck has been well maintained and has had some important components replaced recently. While the seller's description paints a generally positive picture of the truck, it's important to keep in mind that it is still a 50-year-old vehicle and may have some wear and tear that's not immediately apparent. However, the recent maintenance work and solid condition of the frame and body are definitely positive signs. The price of $5,000 seems reasonable for a classic truck in this condition, especially considering the recent maintenance work that's been done. However, as with any used vehicle purchase, it's important to do your due diligence and gather as much information as possible before making a decision. 10. We're checking out a 1972 Chevrolet Chevy van that's up for grabs on Facebook Marketplace. The seller has it listed at a price of $2,500. First off, it's important to note that this van is being sold as a project vehicle. The seller mentions that it needs a carburetor, which suggests that it's not currently in running condition. According to the seller's description, the van has been driven for only 3,000 miles, which is incredibly low for a vehicle of this age. It comes with an automatic transmission, a green exterior, and a black interior. One of the standout features of this van is that the seller states it has no significant damage or problems and comes with a clean title. This is always reassuring to hear when considering a used vehicle purchase, especially for a van that's nearly 50 years old. Under the hood, the van has a 350 motor with a transmission, which is a common and reliable engine option for Chevy vans of this era. However, as mentioned earlier, the seller notes that it needs a carburetor, which will need to be addressed before the van can be driven. While the low mileage and clean title are definitely positive signs, it's important to keep in mind that this is still a project vehicle that will require some work to get it back on the road. The need for a carburetor suggests that there may be other mechanical issues or maintenance needs that aren't immediately apparent. The price of $2,500 seems reasonable for a classic van in this condition. especially considering the low mileage and clean title. However, potential buyers should be prepared to invest some time and money into getting it running and roadworthy again. As always, I recommend that any interested buyers reach out to the seller with any questions or concerns they may have, and schedule an in-person viewing if possible. It's also a good idea to get a professional inspection to assess the overall condition of the van and identify any potential issues before making a purchase. 11. We're taking a closer look at a 1984 Chevrolet Scottsdale that's currently for sale on Facebook Marketplace. The seller has it listed at a price of $12,500. According to the seller's description, this Scottsdale has been driven for 151,000 miles, which is not uncommon for a truck of this age. It comes with an automatic transmission, a black exterior, and an unspecified interior color. The seller also mentions that it runs on gasoline and has had 3 or more owners in the past. The seller notes that this Scottsdale is a K10 model, which means it's a 4-wheel drive truck. They also mention that it has power windows, power locks, and air conditioning, which are nice features to have in a classic truck like this. Under the hood, the truck has a 305 cubic inch V8 engine, which is a common and reliable engine option for Chevy trucks of this era. While the seller's description is fairly brief, it does provide some key information about the truck's features and specifications. However, it doesn't go into detail about the overall condition of the vehicle or any recent maintenance or repairs that have been done. The price of $12,500 seems a bit high for a truck of this age and mileage, especially without more information about its condition and history. Potential buyers will want to ask plenty of questions and possibly even get a professional inspection before committing to a purchase at this price point. It's also worth noting that the seller doesn't provide any photos of the interior of the truck, which could be a red flag for some buyers. It's always a good idea to get a complete picture of the vehicle's condition before making a decision. As always, I recommend that any interested buyers reach out to the seller with any questions or concerns they may have and schedule an in-person viewing and test drive if possible. It's also a good idea to research the market value of similar trucks in your area to ensure that you're getting a fair price. 12. We're checking out a unique vehicle that's up for grabs on Facebook Marketplace, a 1977 Ford F-750 fire truck. The seller has it listed at a price of $5,200 or best offer. First off, it's important to note that this is a specialty vehicle that was originally designed and built for firefighting purposes. The seller mentions that they purchased it at a county auction, which is not uncommon for retired fire trucks. According to the seller's description, the truck has an incredibly low 22,000 original miles on it, which is impressive for a vehicle of this age and type. It has a red exterior and a black interior, which is a classic color combination for fire trucks. The seller states that the truck runs and drives great, which is always reassuring to hear. They also mention that everything works, including the horns and sirens, which are unique features of a fire truck. However, they do note that they're not sure about the water sprayers, as they don't know how to operate them. While the low mileage and working features are definitely positive signs, it's important to keep in mind that this is still a 46-year-old specialty vehicle that may have some unique maintenance and repair needs. Potential buyers should be prepared to invest some time and money into ensuring that it stays in good working order. The price of $5,200 or best offer seems reasonable for a unique vehicle like this, especially considering the low mileage and working features. However, it's important to keep in mind that the market for retired fire trucks may be somewhat limited, so it may take some time to find the right buyer. As always, I recommend that any interested buyers reach out to the seller with any questions or concerns they may have and schedule an in-person viewing and test drive if possible. It's also a good idea to research the specific model and year of the truck to get a better understanding of its capabilities and potential issues. 13. We're taking a look at a 1977 Chevrolet Silverado that's currently for sale on Facebook Marketplace. The seller has it listed at a price of $3,000. According to the seller's description, this Silverado has been driven for 150,000 miles, which is not uncommon for a truck of this age. It comes with an automatic transmission, a black exterior, and a red interior. The seller also mentions that it runs on gasoline and has a clean title with no significant damage or problems. However, it's important to note that the seller states the truck is not currently running and does not have a key. This is a significant issue that potential buyers will need to take into consideration, as it may require some work and expense to get the truck up and running again. On the positive side, the seller does mention that the truck is solid and straight, with only a little rust in typical places. This suggests that the overall structure and body of the truck are in good condition, which is important for a vehicle of this age. The price of $3,000 seems reasonable for a non-running truck of this age and condition, especially considering the clean title and lack of significant damage. However, potential buyers should be prepared to invest some time and money into getting it running and roadworthy again. As always, I recommend that any interested buyers reach out to the seller with any questions or concerns they may have, and schedule an in-person viewing if possible. It's also a good idea to bring along a mechanic or someone with experience working on classic trucks to assess the condition and potential repairs needed. I strive to provide an honest and sincere assessment of every vehicle I feature, and I believe that this 1977 Chevrolet Silverado could be a great project for someone with the mechanical skills and resources to take it on. Just be sure to approach the deal with a realistic understanding of the work that may be involved and factor that into your decision-making process. 14. We're checking out a 1969 Ford Ranger that's up for grabs on Facebook Marketplace. The seller has it listed at a price of $6,900, but they mention that the price is negotiable. According to the seller's description, this Ranger has been driven for 89,000 miles, which is relatively low for a truck of this age. It comes with an automatic transmission, a brown exterior, and a red interior. The seller also mentions that it runs on gasoline and has had only one owner, which is always a good sign. One of the standout features of this truck is that the seller states it has no significant damage or problems and comes with a clean title. This is reassuring to hear when considering a classic vehicle purchase. The seller provides some additional details about the truck's condition and recent maintenance. They mention that it has a brand new carburetor, good tires, good brakes, a strong engine and transmission, and a solid frame. They also note that the suspension is smooth and the heater works, which are all positive signs for a truck of this age. The fact that the truck is all original is also a selling point for many classic vehicle enthusiasts. It suggests that the truck has been well maintained and hasn't undergone any major modifications or repairs that could compromise its integrity or value. The price of $6,900 seems reasonable for a classic truck in this condition, especially considering the low mileage, single-owner history, and recent maintenance. However, the seller's willingness to negotiate on the price is always a good thing for potential buyers. As always, I recommend that any interested buyers reach out to the seller with any questions or concerns they may have, and schedule an in-person viewing and test drive if possible. It's also a good idea to get a professional inspection to assess the overall condition of the truck and identify any potential issues. I strive to provide an honest and sincere assessment of every vehicle I feature, and I believe that this 1969 Ford Ranger could be a great purchase for someone looking for a solid and well-maintained classic truck. The seller's detailed description and willingness to negotiate on the price are definitely positive signs, and the truck's overall condition and originality make it a standout listing. 15. We're taking a closer look at a 1985 Chevrolet Silverado that's currently for sale on Facebook Marketplace. The seller has it listed at a price of $3,200 or something close to that. First off, it's important to note that while the seller's description mentions some positive aspects of the truck, they also openly acknowledge some significant rust and damage issues. According to the seller, this Silverado has been driven for only 46,000 miles, which is incredibly low for a truck of this age. They make a point to clarify that the mileage is not 146,000, which suggests that the odometer may have rolled over at some point. The truck comes with an automatic transmission, a blue exterior, and a matching blue interior. It also runs on gasoline. The seller mentions that the truck has a 305 engine and a 700 R4 transmission. which are common and reliable components for Chevy trucks of this era. They also note that the truck has air conditioning, new brakes, including lines, and an aluminum 3-core radiator with dual electric fans, which are all positive features. However, the seller is upfront about the fact that the truck has some significant rust and damage issues. They mention that while the underside of the truck is flawless, the cab corners and rockers have rot, and both rear quarters have rust. The passenger side bed also has damage. These are all common problem areas for older trucks, but they can be costly and time-consuming to repair. On a more positive note, the seller does mention that the truck comes with tons of extra parts, which could be useful for repairs or upgrades. They also state that the truck could be a daily driver if the new carburetor that they have is installed. The seller's reason for selling the truck is that they recently broke their ankle and won't be able to work for a few months. This suggests that they may be motivated to sell the truck quickly, which could be an opportunity for potential buyers to negotiate on the price. 16. We're taking a look at a couple of 1984 Chevrolet Silverados that are currently for sale on Facebook Marketplace. The seller has them listed at a price of $1,500 each or $2,500 for both. Now, it's important to note right off the bat that the seller's description suggests that these trucks are not in perfect condition. They mention that both trucks run, but also need work, which is a key piece of information for potential buyers to consider. According to the seller, both trucks have automatic transmissions and run on gasoline. The black truck's interior color is not specified, but the exterior is black. The seller also mentions that they have a clear title for the gray truck, but are still looking for the title for the black one, which could be a potential issue for buyers. While the seller doesn't go into a lot of detail about the specific work that the trucks need, the fact that they're being sold as a pair and at a relatively low price point suggests that they may have some significant issues or maintenance needs. It's possible that they could be good project trucks for someone with the mechanical skills and resources to take them on, but they may not be the best choice for someone looking for a reliable daily driver. The lack of detailed information about the truck's condition and history means that potential buyers will definitely want to ask plenty of questions and possibly even get a professional inspection before committing to a purchase. It's also worth noting that the missing title for the black truck could make it difficult or even impossible to register and insure the vehicle, depending on the laws in your area. As always, I aim to be as sincere and transparent as possible in my assessment of these vehicles. While the low price point and potential for a 2-for-1 deal may be tempting, I encourage anyone interested in these Silverados to approach the sale with a healthy dose of caution and skepticism. Without more information about the truck's specific issues and maintenance needs, it's hard to say whether they're a good value or a potential money pit. As with any used vehicle purchase, it's important to do your due diligence and gather as much information as possible before making a decision. 17. We're checking out a 1984 GMC 2500 that's up for grabs on Facebook Marketplace. The seller has it listed at a price of $4,500. According to the seller's description, this truck has been driven for 152,000 miles, which is not unusual for a vehicle of this age. It comes with an automatic transmission, a brown exterior, and an unspecified interior color. The seller also mentions that it runs on gasoline, is paid off, and has a clean title with no significant damage or problems. The seller describes this GMC as a solid square body 4x4 truck with a 350 engine, which is a common and reliable engine option for trucks of this era. They also mention that they have a new gas tank with straps that has been primered and painted, which is a nice touch. One of the standout features of this truck is that the seller has actually been using it as a work truck. They mention that it runs and drives great and that they drove it to work for a few weeks. They also used it to haul cattle to the butcher and to transport straw and hay to the barn, which suggests that it's a reliable and functional vehicle. The fact that the seller has been using the truck for work purposes is a good sign, as it indicates that it's in good enough condition to handle regular use and heavy loads. However, potential buyers should still be sure to ask about the truck's maintenance history and any potential issues that may have arisen during its use. The price of $4,500 seems reasonable for a solid 400-bar truck of this age and condition, especially considering the recent work that's been done to it, like the new gas tank. However, as with any used vehicle purchase, it's always a good idea to get a professional inspection to assess the overall condition of the truck and identify any potential issues. 18. Let me tell you about this interesting 1969 Chevrolet van I found on Facebook Marketplace. Let's be completely honest here. This is definitely a project car, and there's no sugarcoating it. For $1,000, you're looking at a 1-ton Chevy van with some intriguing modifications. The original engine has been swapped out for a 1996 LT1 Corvette 350 engine, which is actually a pretty cool upgrade. It's got a 4-speed transmission and a newer 3/4-ton rear end, showing someone had plans for this vehicle. Now here's where we need to be real. There are some significant issues. The carburetor needs work. It requires an electric fuel pump and regulator to get running properly. And perhaps the biggest red flag is the title situation. The Kentucky title exists, but has someone else's signature on it, which could be a headache to sort out. With 100,000 miles on the clock and a black exterior, this van could be an interesting project for someone who's mechanically inclined and isn't afraid of dealing with title paperwork. At $1,000, the price reflects its condition and challenges, but that LT1 engine could make it worth the effort for the right buyer. Remember, this isn't a drive-home today vehicle. It's more of a bring a trailer and a plan situation. But for someone looking for a project with potential, especially with that Corvette engine, it might be worth checking out. 19. Let me tell you about this pretty sweet 1966 Ford F-100 I spotted on Facebook Marketplace in Delton, Michigan. This isn't your average old pickup truck. It's got some serious character and interesting upgrades. What we're looking at is a short bed F-100 with a burly 352 big block under the hood, paired with a 3-speed manual transmission. The green exterior gives it that classic vintage look, and with just 66,000 miles on the clock, it's got relatively low mileage for its age. But here's where it gets interesting. The owner has upgraded it with Crown Victoria suspension, which is actually a pretty smart modification that significantly improves the ride and handling compared to the original setup. They've also added power steering and fender well headers, making it both easier to drive and giving it a meaner sound. At $10,500, you're getting a truck that's been thoughtfully modified while keeping its classic charm. The seller describes it as a bad-axe little truck that's fun to drive, and based on the specs, I can believe it. The combination of the big block engine, manual transmission, and modern suspension upgrades suggests this is a truck that can actually be enjoyed on the road, not just shown off at car meets. This seems like a solid option for someone who wants a classic F-100 that's been upgraded for better drivability without losing its vintage appeal. It's not a museum piece, but rather a well-modified classic that you can actually use and enjoy. 20. Let's talk about this 1984 Dodge D250 I found on Facebook Marketplace. I'm going to be completely straight with you about what we're looking at here. This is a solid old-school Dodge pickup with the robust 5.9L 360 gas engine showing just 48,000 miles on the clock. The tan exterior and interior combination gives it that classic 80s vibe. And honestly, for a nearly 40-year-old truck, it seems to be in pretty decent shape. Let's be upfront about the issues. There's no AC, which is pretty common for these older trucks. The fuel gauge isn't working, and the interior needs some TLC. However, the current owner has been proactive with maintenance, installing a new HEI distributor, fresh plugs and wires, new front calipers, brake lines, and an inline fuel filter. They're even planning to clean up the carburetor. What's particularly appealing is that both the body and frame are reportedly in great condition, which is crucial for these older trucks. The paint job is relatively recent, though done by the previous owner. The current owner uses it regularly for 20-minute trips to the dump, so it's a running, driving vehicle, not just a lawn ornament. At $8,400 or best offer, you're getting a classic work truck that needs some finishing touches but has good bones. The seller is honest about wanting to recoup their investment, and for someone looking for a solid platform to gradually improve, this could be a worthwhile project. It's not perfect, but it's a straightforward, honest truck that could be really nice with some additional work.